I guess if you're Dre from the UK SOC team, it's Tradecraft Tuesday, isn't it? Hello, welcome, come on in, sit down. We have a really fun one for you today. More than maybe any other Tradecraft Tuesday that I've ever been a part of. I've been really looking forward to this one. Today is all about taking a keen eye to all of the crazy things that you've seen in movies and maybe TV shows. We're going to break out Emacs and modify that Perl script. We're going to write a Visual Basic GUI in Visual. I don't even know the line. It's so ridiculous. You might see two people typing on a keyboard at the same time. FAO
My
Schwartz, heart and
God,
soul keyboard style.
my favorite hacking
Yeah,
scene of all time.
favorite hacking scene of all time. So come on in. Tell us where you're coming in from in the chat. By the way, you got a couple rules for Tradecraft Tuesday. Okay. Make sure that you set your chat to everyone, not just the panelists, so that you can chat with like everybody. If you got a question, just throw it out there. We will get to it. And also, I better not catch you in the chat without PMA. Greg, what's PMA? Positive mental attitude.
With
That's right.
attitude. Yep.
All right. Well, anyway, welcome. So today we're going to start off with some in the news here with a little bit of a Tradecraft Tuesday twist for the Hollywood Hacker episode of Tradecraft Tuesday. We're going to go through all of the different, our favorite, our best and worst examples of Hollywood hacking from, movies and TV and that kind of stuff. And then maybe just a little wrap up about what's coming next, where you can find Huntress and everybody else. And we're going to have a pretty good time. But I am joined today by my two esteemed colleagues and co-hosts. The first one, if he joins your party, all hackers in the vicinity get a +10 negative fear debuff. It's Greg Linares. Greg, please introduce yourself.
Thanks, everyone. I'm the principal threat analyst here at Huntress. I've been here for about almost a year and a half now, and super happy to join everyone today. I love hacking movies, especially the bad ones. So this has been a great time.
Also want to
And with
shout out that Greg just had a Darknet Diaries episode
yeah,
released about it where he's interviewed. And I mean, like, if you know anything about Darknet Diaries, you don't just trip and fall into one of those. So go check that out. So Greg, thank you for being here. Thanks for taking some time. Let's have some fun today. I'm also joined by a good disciple of the Gemstone, one of our principal software engineers, John Highland. John, hello. Please introduce yourself.
Hello, yeah, I'm John, pronouns of they, them, and I'm a principal software engineer. I feel like I should have a little bit of a caveat on a panel like this. I'm not a security researcher. I do
Right, yeah.
code, but I have seen a lot of movies with some very dodgy hacking in them, so I'm still excited.
So that is the beautiful thing, is that today I'm Matt Kiley, whatever. It doesn't even matter that whatever we are in the context of like Huntress and our day jobs, it almost doesn't even matter, because today we're just three guys who love movies and we know a little bit about the tech, we know a little bit about the hacking, and we're going to do our best CinemaSins impression and point out the things and push our glasses up across our nose and say, well, actually, it's going to be a pretty good time. But yeah, today is all about just is celebrating this wonderful little community and culture that we have and its depictions in cinema and in TV shows. But first, I'm going to kick it over to Greg for the In the News section. We're going to start out Tradecraft Tuesday as we usually do with some In the News. Greg, take it away.
Thanks. And with the first one we're going to roll right into is ransomware contributing to a patient's death. So yes, this is not the first time this has actually occurred. There's been a previous case actually in Alabama in 2020, I believe, where a patient was likely attributed to their death due to ransomware taking over a hospital. And this is what's important about this one is this occurred in the UK. The patient didn't have time to submit their blood work and what happened there is a hospital failed to identify a critical disease that they had, and the patient later died. So the big reason why this is in the news is this is rumored to be a big kickoff of a reevaluation of hospitals' cybersecurity, as well as new laws going to ransomware and other events. So the hospitals are all coming together, the insurance claims are coming together, the government's all up in arms about this one. And this is also the first time where the hospital crew and the police sat down with the victim and literally said, your family member died because of ransomware. So that was this is a big monumental point in cybersecurity, I believe, where this is the first time that we can actually say, okay, this was attributed to a ransomware case directly. And now there's going to be policy changing coming up with this. So yes, this is This was a very big case and happened in the UK, and it was only revealed, I believe, like 2 or 3 weeks ago. So yeah, early July. So we'll see where this goes. Hopefully, it allows new laws to go in effect into harsher punishments as well as stronger investigation capabilities for ransomware in that environment.
Absolutely. I like to say that the only good ransomware operator who's going after hospitals is behind bars. If you are the lowest of the low, if you and like Greg, I think you could probably pinpoint it, but like ransomware rings used to not go after hospitals, and this is kind of like a relatively recent evolution. But yeah,
A-
no
Absolutely,
no
yeah.
sympathy for these guys at all.
Yeah, in 2020, they actually during COVID, they actually most of them signed in like had a agreement not to go after hospitals, and since then, a couple of them have started to go after them. I think this is Keelan or Quilin, however you pronounce their name.
Yeah.
That's the group who's been attributed with this attack, and it's what's really interesting is other ransomware groups have actually called them out. They were like, these guys are terrible. Like, why, they're actually going after their code too. I saw a couple ransomware groups actually starting taking apart Qlin's ransomware and start finding flaws in them. So,
Mm.
good on you guys for calling them out, I suppose.
Yeah, no
But
no
I
honor
guess
among
no
thieves.
honor. Exactly, no honor among thieves. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, to all the ransomware operators out there, we wish you a very pleasant extradition and or FBI kicking in your door. Moving on,
And
Operation Deep
and with
Sentinel.
Yeah, speaking of kicking down the doors, we had two major busts in the last 30 days or so.
Let's
That was Deep
go.
Sentinel. Yeah, Deep Sentinel and Operation Secure. Operation Secure has more information about it. Deep Sentinel is kind of it's going for like both of these were primarily targeted at info stealers and their they're sort of like their back operations. So this is it's been very successful that the Interpol and all the other police law enforcement groups have been going after the actual where the markets are. So they're not going after individuals; they're going after where they can sell their information or they can buy their information, and they've been taking out the middleman. And it's actually been very successful so far this year. So we'll start with Operation Secure and going with that. As you can see, the numbers right there are really impressive for this operation, and it got almost no fanfare. So it kind of went under the radar, but it pulled out a lot of middlemen and people that were reselling information stealers. This is also all tied to Luma. Again, this is a spread of Luma based off that. So that one, there's going to be apparently there's going to be a follow up in next month, another Norbus that they're promising. So hats off to these two operations being successful, and hopefully we continue seeing them taking down the low hanging fruits of crime and some of the higher hanging fruits of crime eventually.
Absolutely.
Yep. And with that, this is a personally hated one. It's 2025, and default and hard coded passwords are still everywhere. I just happened to. I was just looking through my CVE list this morning, and I just noticed there was at least 11 hard coded passwords in the last 2 months of major flaws, and they are all over like CVS score of over 9 on these. And we Cisco, Fortinet, D-Link, and then the Sitecore, CMS, all had a password of B, the lowercase b.
I love it.
Yeah, absolutely. I love doing all this hard work and coming down to a password that's been hard coded root, on your accounts for one letter. But what the big reason here is CISA is actually going after companies now. They're doing another press to make sure that hard coded passwords don't exist, and making a big push to make sure that default passwords are no longer a thing. And this is not just in home environments. They're doing this for manufacturing. So a big component of this, if you've ever did red teaming or blue teaming in the space, is hospital environments still come with a lot of default passwords, and manufacturing hardware devices, big expensive devices often come with default passwords still enabled on them. And now CISA and other groups are coming together and saying that, hey, it's 2025, we can't be doing this anymore.
Right.
And so I'm very happy to see that get pushed. And there's going to be an announcement. There was an announcement on the 7th, and then they're going to be doing another one in the near future about that as well.
Outstanding. Yeah. Kind of goes to the adage, hackers aren't hacking, they're logging in. If you give
Exactly.
them if you give them an avenue of just typing in B as the password field and that works, guess what they're gonna do? So I'm glad to hear that Cyza is cracking down on that as well. In any case, that brings us to our main event today, and we're going to start
Yes.
with Greg. And so, as a reminder, these are Hollywood and/or TV depictions of hacking. We've picked some of the best, we've picked some of the worst, and we're going to start off with Greg. So, Greg, please lead us into this beautiful, crazy, confusing world of Hollywood hacking and kick us off.
I just want to say first off, I love Hollywood hacking. I've actually done some helping on a couple of couple incidents of Hollywood hacking and the amount that it's required to get Hollywood hacking right and make it look sexy and stylized and to make it accurate is the trifecta of almost impossible. What I'm going to do today is I'm going to present two examples that I've recently seen that are actually really good. They show some stylizations and they actually do show hacking effective. And it makes it much better than some terrible examples of like Swordfish. I will say is absolutely the worst example ever made. And so yes, we'll start that right off with I think we missed this if we missed a slide or we went back. But anyways, it's the first one I want example is the beekeeper. Anyways, it starts off with a poor Swordfish, exactly. The beekeeper, if anyone's seen it, it is a IT scam scene, and it starts off with a pop-up device on the victim screen, just like here. And we have a clip here. I think it's the next slide. We can go ahead and go through the clip. Oh, maybe the clip, we lost the clip. No worries.
Let me pull a Kyle Hansel and get real with you and talk directly to the camera while I'm fixing slides here. And it does not look, maybe a slide was deleted. Let's see. Okay, there we go. I got it now. So I'm going to get really real with you right now. And then I'm going to very surreptitiously go ahead and fix the slides. And then we are going to
appreciate that.
One moment, stand by.
So surreptitious.
Yes.
So surreptitious. Here we go. And we get the screen share back.
Oh yeah, you were hacking the slides.
Right.
Exactly.
We're hacking the slides.
Live webinars,
no
everybody.
Worries.
They are always fun.
I forgot to pray to the demo gods today, everyone. So I
You didn't
apologize.
sacrifice a Cat 5 cable?
I did not. I'm sorry.
Oh
I'm sorry.
All right. Well, hey, we're back. We'll edit that out in post.
Back.
We always edit things out in post, but here we go. We've got our first clip coming from Greg, and this is the beekeeper.
Yeah.
Boss, got something? Yeah? I got one. I want it. I need it. Hey, put it in my ear. Get this fucking hippie shit down, please. United Data Group, good afternoon. This is Boyd.
I apologize for the language, everyone.
Boyd.
Parental advisory.
Hello, I just got a message saying that there's a problem with my computer.
Don't worry, the message you're receiving from our United Data Group antivirus software. It's part of the software package you pre-installed.
We could stop it right here anyway. So we'll break down this scene. So
okay, yeah, I'm actually, this is not crazy out of the realm of possibility so far, but Greg, what's your take on this?
So this actually really well depicts an IT scam environment where a victim is doing something and a pop-up comes up and it says, hey, you got these malware on your machine, call this number. And like this absolutely affects elderly people. I've seen actually affect young people too recently. I saw some kids I read some reports about kids calling these numbers too, and they're on their parents' computers and they get scammed as well. So what happens here in the movie? It actually, the lady calls the number. They say they're the antivirus that was pre-installed on the machine. And the daughter of the victim bought the machine, so the parent has no idea what it is. And so when they say, hey, oh yeah, let's go back to there's one thing I want to point out here. So if you look in the back right, they have a remote desktop solution that makes sense. This is friendly. So they have the victim go to the website and download the RMM device.
Yeah, that's like almost textbook right there. That's true to form.
Absolutely.
This is not very like Hollywood's not really filling in a lot of like, you know, oversimplified information here. Like that looks like an actual RMM or like an actual remote access tool. Yeah,
Yeah,
maybe
yeah.
it's open source. Maybe you grab it from the web. Yeah, that's pretty accurate.
They have a slick web page for it that looks exactly like every single RMM website on top of it. And the other thing I want to point out is whoever did the hacking consulting on this, they also took the time to put all the phones in the back left here, which would make it look like a clickjacking farm they have on the left side, which was not related to this hack, but absolutely legit that they had all these clickjacking phones all set up here. And they show the scamming. If you saw the environment, they saw the scam IT scammer. And there's recently there was a really interesting con where people were targeting scammers, and they showed it happened real time hacking of the scammer farms and such. Yeah. We'll skip back. It's a little bit right about there.
Like right there.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, and just like in the real world events, these are massive office spaces converted into big areas, and both men and women are working here, and they're using this to sit down, make hundreds of calls a day. If you've ever worked in a like phone booth or a long distance phone call selling air environment, it's the exact same. I worked at one. I was an MCI employee. I slung long distance for 2 years. Second biggest paycheck I ever made. I was out of long distance sales. I had a $3,600 per day work environment paycheck while selling long distance. So like it's crazy. But yes, this was actually a really well done scene.
This is like the details in here. So I want to shout out to everybody. If you have not taken some time and fallen down the YouTube rabbit hole of scam baiting, I absolutely recommend that you take like a night and watch like 5 or 6 hours of like Hitboga videos or Jim Browning. I forget what his last name is. That's not his actual name. That's a pseudonym. But basically, there are tech-savvy individuals out there that hunt down scammer call centers like this and waste their time and like get them to divulge too much information, and then they do like Shodan scans against them. So, from what I understand about the scam baiting community, and I'm not even like John Hammond is probably like way more involved with that than I am.
Yes.
But from what I understand, like I see details in this movie clip that are like almost 1-for-1 in this case. So this is a really good pick, Greg. Really good pick.
Yeah. On top of that, what happens is they get the victim to download the RMM software, and then they show her they have access to all the accounts, but they can't get into the accounts. So they have the victim type in her master password, and they don't really explain it, but it acts like the master password, like a password keeper password. So once she downloads that, they are able to exfiltrate all the money off all the accounts. So that part is also somewhat real. So hats off to everyone who was involved in this A plus scene. I had got a little PTSD watching it because I felt like something I've dealt with many times on calls. Yes, there you go. Yep, exactly. So, and then this is the remote desktop solution, and it was really well done. And excellent. my second example, we'll move on to that, is we're going to go to The Good Doctor, season 4, episode 10, called Decrypt. So I had a friend. I was telling them I was doing this this panel, and they were like, "Hey, have you seen this episode of The Good Doctor?" I was like, "No, why would I?" And they were like, "Oh, well, it was really accurate. I thought it was really accurate." This person's a non-IT person, and they were like, "Oh, they had this hacking." I was like, "Okay." So I went into it, not expecting anything. We can go ahead and watch the clip. And
I also haven't seen this. John, I don't know, have you seen it? Okay, so we're sight unseen. Let's see how this goes. All right.
ABC.
What's going on? Our computers are down. They hacked into the network. If we don't pay, they're gonna delete our data.
What's the ransom? $2 million.
I can find a mistake in their encryption.
You've got 24 hours.
If I'm wrong, these attacks kill someone.
Run, open!
Something could go wrong. But you always know how to fix things.
All right.
So,
yeah, lots to unpack with this one, but what are you thinking?
Yes. So I was actually kind of blown away. So go ahead and go to my next slide here. So I get to break this down. This episode had everything in it. So first off, it was a hospital ransomware that affects patient lives. In the beginning, the ransomware locks down all the devices, including the Pixis system, which helps people in hospitals pull out critical items such as painkillers, anything that requires approval. This is the device that logs the who pulled it out, when they used it, timing and tracking. That is locked down, so they can't access critical medicine, and they have to break it open, as you saw dramatically with the fire axe. The next thing that happened is after the hospitals is ransomware, after everyone realized that they were ransomware, they start routing non-critical patients or other, they become inundated. So there's no one who can work here. So they route it to other hospitals. Okay. Now, this is important here because that is a real problem. So in other cases, historically, according to HIPAA and to other reports we have on cybersecurity, that's when hospitals become the most dangerous due to ransomware or cybersecurity events, is when they have to reroute other patients to hospitals who are not advised to take them, who can't take you, who are not at that level. So this is the one where there could have been deaths that we don't record directly to ransomware, because instead of going to that hospital, they were just routed silently to another hospital. And that's really important that that the show actually did show that. They said, hey, we got to take everyone out and take them up to another hospital. Yep. The other thing that they went through is the on-site backups and clouds were also encrypted. They specifically said the attackers broke in 30 days prior.
Yeah, they waited for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, they even say that they were in there for 30 days ago, and that they waited for the on-site cloud backups to sync so where they can get all of them. So that was there's someone who did their homework here. So they talked about the actual encryption method as well as the backup process, and that's exactly what real world hackers are going to do. They're going to look at those backups, they're going to lock those down, and they're going to make sure that everything you have is useless at this point. Then the show has insurance come in. An insurance salesman or insurance individual comes in and starts performing the negotiation with the group. So incredible. Like this was a detail that someone sat down and was like, oh, this really happened, so we're going to have to add this into the into the episode. So they had this slimy.
What is the site where you can go to see the logs of ransomware negotiations, the chat apps? It's ransomware.live.
Ransomware.live
something
is
like
usually
that.
the good one. So yeah, they have that, and they have some negotiations there. And this is a person whose job is to perform that. And of course, he screws it up, and they get angry. And just like in real world situation, this happens a lot. And so then the attack escalates where they say the ransomware operators are going to destroy hardware with a botnet worm. All right. So watching through the episode, it was an immediate headache when you get this, you're just like, okay, whatever, so they apparently the hackers get into the MRI units and all this other, and the X-ray machines and all these. Okay. However, I want to say that I don't really want to spoil it for anyone, but I'm gonna go in anyway. So the IT administrator and the girl in this show, she absolutely rocks. She is way better than any IT administrator. Like she needs a pay raise, salary like 6 times higher, because to restore this, she has a physical hard drive restoration where she finds a hard drive that was synced up before the data sync, but it had coffee spilled on it. So So she is literally taking spinning hard drives and moving them from platters to platters interface. This happens in this episode, and she does it in a hospital environment. A+ for that. Mm-hmm. But then as she finds a problem in the encryption, which it happens with ransomware sometimes, as we all know, there are some free decrypts apparently out there. But the important thing is she says that they were lying about the botnet worm, and that in order for them to have the skills to hack MRI units and X-ray units and things like they say, it would be physically impossible. They have to be the best hackers in the world and have to have those available hardware to them. They actually point that out in the episode. So A+, whoever worked on this, good job. And that's also an actual tactic that ransomware operators will use. They will say that the damage is worse than it actually is in order to make individuals pay higher amounts or pay the money on time.
Yeah.
So that's exactly what happens.
Yeah, I mean, I know hospital environments are pretty complicated in a general sense, but to have immediate access to every single like medical device that's hooked up to the network and have a wormable, a botnet worm that could affect all of them like unilaterally seems a little, yeah, seems kind of like a fairy tale, I guess. But yeah, if that's used as a scare tactic, I could totally see that happening in real life.
And that's exactly what happened. They used it as a scare tactic in the episode. It's actually it was super great. Like if anyone finds out whoever did the hacking consultation on this, hats off to you. You did a great job.
That is Greg Linares saying congrats and accolades to the person who did this. That is no small congratulations. So good job.
And the most important thing, I thought, they did this with almost no UI, no hacking UX, none of that in there. Mm-hmm. If you go ahead and hit the next slide, I think I just show exactly, this is all they had. They show her restoring the hard drive in the top left. Yep. And then they have some BIOS boots up, and then they had the actual restoration of the backups on there. That was all they had. That was all they were able to convey, this absolutely pretty good hacking scene with just that.
Yep, no scrolling green rain text, no
oh my god,
two people on a keyboard.
No two people on a keyboard. I just want to say, during this time, one of my favorite things I found was I found a lot of refound a lot of bad hacking scenes, and my favorite one actually of bad ones I rewatched was the famous Terminator 2 hacking scene where the kid puts in the pin device to hack the ATM machine. And this was actually Barnaby Jack's inspiration to hack ATMs, the jackpotting. That was actually his inspiration for that. What I found hilarious, though, what I didn't realize is when they had the ATM pin hacking device on there. Yeah, rest in peace, Barnaby. He was for anyone who didn't know, I actually took his spot when he left EI back in the day. I was the researcher that was hired in his footsteps. I actually sat at his desk. Massive shoes to fill. I never did, but I appreciate him. He was a great guy. But in the hacking scene, they have the pin number, hacking, and it starts off with like 14-digit pin numbers that are cracking, like they're trying all the numbers, and I'm just like, what kind of pin number has like 14 digits in it? Why did he start at that massive number, and it gets smaller and smaller and smaller until it gets 9003? And I was just like, whoever designed the UI for that was just like, I want to show massive numbers and I wanted to make it look awesome. And but yes, famous scene where the pin numbers are like 14 digits long. Incredible.
I think the whole like trope in Hollywood is that the black box, that's like the word that they use for it. Some little black box that you like plug into a access code code or whatever, and spit it out. Yeah, it lights up or whatever. Yeah. If
we ever do another one of these, one thing I want to do is like I didn't have enough time for this one, was to try to find old versions of hacking scenes that can now be done with today's technology, like with flippers and stuff like that. Like there could be things that we could be like, oh wait, that didn't work. That's not how it worked back then. But if we did this with this technology today, we could. That'd be kind of interesting to do. Yeah. But it was hats off to whoever had the 14-digit pin numbers back in the day and for that cracking device.
Excellent. Well, let's move on. I think, John, you're up, my good man. If you want to bring us into your favorites, your least favorites, the things they got right, the things they got wrong, take it away.
One each. Let's go ahead and move on to the next slide. And I believe I'll just jump straight into a clip here. Is it? Yeah, there we go. Go ahead and play this.
Awesome.
So this is a forensics crime show. They're scanning some bones for just to figure out what happened at a crime scene.
Now, these highlights here, these indicate skeletal trauma. Now the program will compute trajectories.
You can actually skip it forward a little bit. They're just watching the reconstruction happen. Oh, no, too far.
Scuba suit was gonna work, huh?
It did. We determined that Ingrid Johansson
just let it run. It'll just take a few seconds.
Shoved down her throat.
Great. Okay, now the computer should tell us what caused the internal injuries.
A gunshot, but there is no bullet.
Yeah, contact gunshot without a bullet.
The hacking is about to commence.
Oh no!
Oh, jeez, I hate when that happens.
Oh, but it gets worse.
Ah, yeah.
Ah,
Okay, so go ahead and skip forward a little bit. They put out the fire. There's a scene where they explode a okay, not quite that much. Just
Yep. Right
that's
about
incredible.
finish the curve up again. Yeah, that's
Oh.
right there.
up there.
Absolutely incredible.
Explode this watermelon, and then we'll see the explanation for what happened.
Okay, that's a yes.
The killer must have shoved it into her abdomen beneath rib cage.
If you want to know more about the watermelon, you can watch the show.
So
But
it
yeah.
turns out the malware killed our fans.
Oh.
They're supposed to turn on when the CPU reaches 75 degrees, but the malware added a 0 and made it 750.
How did this malware get past our firewall?
Oh,
It originated in my computer.
Wait, but it wouldn't have gotten in there unless you had downloaded something.
Yeah, or uploaded.
All you uploaded were the
Someone in the
scans.
comments has figured it out.
Are you telling me that there's a computer virus in the bones?
Look, I have no idea how this happened, but it is the only explanation.
oh my God! Please.
Now,
Keep watching.
the bones that you scanned into the computer?
Yeah, Wendell swears there's no microchips. Nothing.
Just a roughness.
Is it pitting from the fatal explosion?
I don't think so. Hand me the bottle of edible dye and a brush.
This is an amazing example, by the way.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
What?
It's some kind of fractal pattern. Whoever did this wrote malware on bone that took down $1 million worth of computers.
So
Okay. Okay. Hear me out.
All right.
So go ahead. Or let's talk about this scene a little bit.
CRISPR going hard here.
So this was Bones, season 7, episode 6, a crack in the code. Go ahead and go forward. So let's talk about what they got wrong. Next slide. I don't even know what to say here. Like, no, you can't carve a fractal into a bone, and then when you scan the bone, your computer will catch fire. That's not a thing. But scroll forward a little more. Let's talk about, there's at least something adjacent to some correctness in some parts of this. Like images and can contain malware.
This is what I was going to point out when I said hear me out, but go ahead and give it to him, John.
Yeah. No. So like, and there's like a long history of this, all the way back to, macros and Excel documents, or like Visual Basic stuff. PDFs, I think PNGs recently, some of the headers would do it. Any kind of like XML documents, you can sometimes, depending on how you define the schemas there, you can get it to remote execute something by downloading something malicious. So there's lots of ways that documents or files that you would think would be safe, like an image, it's an image file, right? It should be safe, but it's not. So that is a real thing that does happen. And the other thing, if you want to go forward one more slide, is that sometimes you do mess with hardware, right? Messing with temperature sensors. It wouldn't just like instantly catch fire. But I think I want to say Stuxnet way back, kind of a classic example, did mess with some of the sensors in the hardware that it infected. And there have been other examples similarly. I think there was an exploit for like meters, for like gas meters for your house. That a temperature sensor too.
Yep. Hardware manipulation from malware is not uncommon. We saw that with Whispergate, Stuxnet, like you pointed out, great example of that. I was saying hear me out because just follow me on this one. The scanning software is written in C, okay, and it has a buffer overflow, okay, and the buffer overflow is right at the point from source to sink. It's at the point where the bone scan. I can't believe I'm even saying that. The bone scan gets uploaded into the function that performs the analysis, and you could maybe put something on the bones that is a byte pattern, or like the way that it's interpreted is the byte string that is required to actually perform the buffer overflow and land shellcode. That's a lot of what it is.
I'm going to throw something even weirder in there. What if you had an AI and prompt injection, and we're in the future, and there's an AI interpretation on there? So you had just a prompt injection in your bones there.
Yeah, there you go.
That's possible. Anytime that you combine the control channel with the content, like you open the door to that. This was like, I was assumed that the metadata is probably going to be generated by the scanner, not by the images. So that's where I'm skeptical on that one.
There
but
was
all the details of this buffer overflow. Is it?
there's just recently there was a DNA sample analysis machine that had buffer overflows and analyzing DNA. That literally just got posted a couple days ago. So
it's like a lot. There are a lot of assumptions and a lot of like just follow me on this one, but like I don't know. It's not. It is patently absurd what we saw in the film. I'm not denying that, or the TV show. But the like external scanner turning into like having some kind of exploit code, like I don't know, I could see that kind of going down.
Fair enough. He's got a very steady hand to get that design on the end of the phone.
Yeah, no kidding. 3D printed, I don't know.
I mean, like honestly, that is just an amazing example. I never even heard of this example, but I'm absolutely accelerating it to quite possibly my top 5 favorite hacking scenes ever done now.
Thank you for changing my life, John. I've never seen that scene before. That is a
let's see the next one, because this one is actually my favorite hacking scene.
I think I know exactly what this one is. So let's go ahead and kick it off.
I know what scene it is. Yeah.
Yes.
Still no sight of them. I don't know what they're doing, but they only got 2 minutes left.
Let's go.
And blackout. Yep.
Okay, so let's move on. Next slide. That was the Matrix Reloaded for the 2 of you in the audience who didn't know.
The uninitiated.
And let's talk about what they got right. It's like everything.
Yeah. I co-sign that assertion. That is an accurate hacking scene.
Yeah. So yeah, moving on. Let's Nmap. The first thing they did, port scan on the servers that they were trying to attack, so they can see what's available. Let's go forward a slide. SSH is the next thing they do, and this was a real vulnerability that existed at that time when the movie was made.
That's super cool.
I know. They used some script called SSH nuke. I wasn't able to find any reference to a real one like that. But being able to do remote code execution was a real thing. And you could imagine that Trinity showed up with her laptop that already had some utilities or scripts.
Had like Metasploit, or I guess backtrack at that point.
Like that. So.
Kali Linux preloaded right on there.
I was about to say that like remote code execution against SSH is extremely rare. But like back in the 90s, I could see that happening. So
it was a real thing. It had just come out relatively recently before that, and we had to patch our server. I was a sysadmin at the time. I remember it well.
I remember the Vol. Yeah.
I think I was in middle school at the time, but that's not pertinent.
But yeah, you had to you could change the root password. That was a common thing that people did with that exploit. Once she's in the RF control again, I don't know that that's a real thing, but it sure looked like it. That looked very similar to the old Cisco iOS interfaces that you would do to like program routers and such, which I have used, and it kind of looked like that. It was pretty similar to kind of the command structure and everything. What's the next slide? Okay, it's not perfect. It's very close, but it's not quite perfect. And I would say the only thing they got wrong is they had a little Visual Basic GUI pop-ups that said access granted, or like back in the planet or whatever. Yeah. And those are not real.
Positive confirmation to the uninitiated is what they call it in the movie industry.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's a little poetic license, a little je ne sais quoi, a little dramatic flair, I guess.
There you go. There you go.
It's just sort of illustrating Trinity's internal thought process. I have gained access, right? You know, that's the feeling you get. You just want to.
Exactly. It's a metaphor. There you go. It's a metaphor.
It's one that I was going to say, it's one of the perfect examples of where actual real scripts were actually ever used in movie. I think the only other one I can think of off the top of my head is Tron Legacy. Tron Legacy, by the way, had some of the most impressive UIs, computer UIs ever. They actually show Solaris accurately in there. And unfortunately, the person who wrote all the UI, it was custom written. They recently died. Sadly, they were a Hollywood UI designer for hacking scenes, and they recently died in San Francisco. But if you haven't seen Tron Legacy, absolutely check it out. There's a very brief couple of hacking scenes in there. But they show proper Unix commands, proper Unix output. There's a kill 9 in there and everything. So nice. It's minor things, but it is one of those you pause it and you're like, oh my God, this is real. So I haven't seen it since Matrix Reloaded. So.
Plus, the Tron Legacy soundtrack is an absolute slapper.
Oh God,
by
it's a
Daft Punk.
banger.
It's real good. I will sometimes put it on when I'm like doing work in the background, but
can't wait to see the next one in October with Nine Inch Nails on soundtrack.
I'm a club DJ, and I would actually play stuff off the Tron Legacy.
Nice. Yeah, D-Rez, Daft Punk. That's a
man, classic.
Well,
yeah, the aesthetic. Yeah, whoever shout that out in chat, aesthetic for Tron Legacy.
Yeah, impeccable. Well, again, like I said, John, thank you for changing my life. I mean, I've already seen The Matrix, but I had not seen that Bones one, and man, that's really something. But here I am to give my picks here. And look, we've talked about Bones making, injecting malware and buffer overflows and that kind of stuff. But what I want to do is present a case of a movie that I think is like very well put together. And from the veneer of it, from the aesthetic and the outside, it kind of looks like everything that's going on. It's not as egregious as like the NCIS double keyboard hacking. It's not as egregious as the Bones injecting the malware. But it is, if you put a little bit of a critical eye to it, it really does turn, it has more questions than answers, right? And so my pick for not even the worst hacking scene that I think I could conjure, but really just one that like I think people should take more of a critical eye to is the Skyfall hacking scene, in which Q either hacks something or gets hacked or something like that. I don't know. It's a very confusing scene. I have a shorter version of it, but please go do yourself a favor and watch the whole thing. Also, just watch Skyfall. It's a very good movie. This scene notwithstanding. So, but let's just, I'm going to stop yapping here.
Polymorphic engine to mutate the code. Whenever I try to gain access, it changes.
And I'm going to tell you that there are some details that have been left out of the scene that I'll cover here in a moment. Yep.
Oh man, I love when Rogue Nation gets thrown, Rogue Access gets thrown in my hex dumps.
Yeah. Yep, there it is.
Remember Rogue? It's an old
every day, man.
Metropolitan line, been closed for years. This letter's a key.
And then James Bond figures out that that's like I don't know, Raul Silva's like going there or something. And then this whole thing happens.
Oh, look, it's a map.
It's London.
Okay, it's a map of the London subterranean system. Okay.
What's going on? Why are the doors open?
And then he's like, okay. The Bond springs into action, and then we've got system security.
Can someone tell me how the hell
security
he got
breach.
into our system?
Okay.
Shit. He hacked us.
All right, so he hacked us. All right. So, like I said, there's kind of a few details that I have because I just wanted to keep it nice and short for this one, and not do like the full scene because the full scene is like, I don't know, it's like 5 minutes or 6 minutes. So I just wanted to speed it along. But let me point out some of the things that happened just before that, right? So the background here is that James Bond and Q have Raul Silva. He's the main antagonist of Skyfall. They have him in custody. He's in like basically like a big like, isolation chamber, right, in jail. And they have his laptop, right? So Q plugs into Raul Silva's laptop, and he immediately says he's established a fail-safe protocol to wipe the memory if there's any attempt to access certain files. Only about 6 people in the world could program safeguards like that. Bond says, can you get past them? Q says, I invented them. So there's this nice little... Q is a master of hacking. Great, we get it. That sounds great. Except, let me point something out to you. This is not that hard. Only 6 people in the world could program safeguards like this, I think, is egregious, right? It's not that difficult to program. And you could do this with like eBPF. You could probably even do this with like cron. I don't know. It wouldn't be that hard to identify. I'm assuming Raul's laptop is a Linux system. I'm just kind of assuming that. It would not be that hard on the Linux operating system to write some kind of failsafe like this to identify when a file is being accessed. And then whether that's wipe the program or just like, kick the bash session or like exit out of it, it would not be that. You could go to ChatGPT right now and probably write something pretty close to just by prompting it, hey, can you write this? I don't think that's particularly difficult. So yeah,
tripwire is a thing. Yeah,
exactly. Tripwire. You could do this in the kernel with eBPF or like maybe a kernel module or a rootkit or something. But like that's not 6 people in the world. Q invented them. Sure thing. Sure you did, buddy.
I don't think it's exactly the same as tripwire, right? Because I'm assuming it's preventing them from actually being able to read them, right? And tripwire is just going to notice after the fact.
Right.
You just replace it.
Exactly.
I guess you're right. Replace the notice with on
notification
real time, with
becomes kill all batch sessions and lock the user out, right? So but then we have, I want to zoom in on the representation of Silva's laptop here, because there is some beautiful stuff on this page.
Oh, okay. I see.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Go
ahead.
So I'll get to it, Greg. I'll get to it. Don't worry. So the first thing that I want to point out is that up on the top left-hand side, we do have a relatively accurate representation of x86 assembly language. If you don't know what that is, compiled systems programs are built so that there's like the ones and zeros way down at the actual bare metal of the operating system, right? But the one step of abstraction up from that is assembly. It's a little bit higher than the machine code, but it's still human readable, right? And so we can tell that this is x86 because we've got like move EDX, we've got some dereferences going on there, add a hex value into EAX. So we've got some relatively accurate x86 here, except when you notice catch brackets.
I was wondering who's getting
mind-boggling.
Sweet try catches in your
and I want to ask whoever put this together. You went through the trouble of identifying a relatively accurate reference for x86 assembly, and put the move ECX 18 hex or what is that 1B hex right there. But then you throw some catch statements in there, right? And then that's compounded by the fact that if you go a little bit south of the assembly, we have what is just straight up JavaScript. And they put a little bit of flavor text in there. You can see like if Windows nav QName app name equals MI6, right? So it's almost like they were like, we got to make this related to Q and MI6 in some way. But I can't, gents, help me out unless I'm absolutely tripping here. Is there any possible...
There's an ActiveX control in there too.
Yeah, there's an ActiveX controller. So maybe
that's crazy.
It could be JScript now that I think of it.
That's
so that it's actually
bizarre.
Yeah, this one's just wild. But then we also at this point have one of my favorite things in all of movie representations of my field and how serious they take us, which is weird abstract shapes representing cybersecurity concepts. And I promise you, if you just start looking for these, they will appear. These things are beautiful. I always love them. I always love that they are not particularly like accurate to whatever they're trying to do, but they just needed something. You saw that in the movie clip. It kind of morphs and changes, right? But I'm gonna point it out and say that this is not. It's ridiculous in the movie, right? But I'm just going to go ahead and say that like visualization tools in cybersecurity and in hacking, not necessarily super out of left field. This is one example. The kind of pen testers and red teamers may be familiar with this. This is Bloodhound, right? This uses Neo4j, which is a graphing database, and you can visualize the graphs. And this is to root out different paths of privilege escalation in Active Directory and Azure environments. So not super... I mean, like this is absolutely insane. I don't even know what I'm looking at, but like visualization tools like this, not necessarily super out of the ordinary, right?
Yeah, I think those are very standard. I've worked in a few different observability companies, and like making kind of maps or visualizations of things that can be very sophisticated looking. And I don't think they're totally crazy at all. I think those are reasonable.
Can I say something? Can we go back to the sweet art that came out there? The I just want to say, I think this is rad, because I mean, for those who, I do an art project where I turn malware into art, and one of the things that this does is it's something like this. One of the other things, and I also turn malware into sound. And I just want to say, whoever came up with this, they were just like, you know what, let's make it look cool, and A plus to that, A plus to that, A plus to that.
There is something to be said just simply for a cool aesthetic for a cool aesthetic's sake.
Yeah. But like,
exactly.
Where all the attacks are happening and you see all the stuff happening on the screen, it's ridiculous, but it looks so cool. It's so fun as an audience member to be watching that. I think.
Now,
one day I hope I can retire and just do that for a living. I'm not gonna lie. There we go.
I'll join you there, buddy. Now this is something I think Greg also found this one. So the hex dump or whatever they were going for with the hex dump. Now you can see that the highlighted text, Q describes this as fighting a Rubik's Cube that's fighting back, or solving a Rubik's Cube that's fighting back, and that the I don't even, where do I even begin with this? The hex dump in columns are rotating along like they're rotating along the different axes, and then James Bond sees that when it clicks into place, it's Granborough, right? Which is I think it's like the underground station or whatever. So I have an actual hex dump on the right, and like, so first of all, hex dumps don't move across any axis. In memory, maybe there's some kind of like obfuscation going on here or something like that. Like maybe that's what they're representing. But like the hex bytes of the thing of the program on the right here are not going to ever move out of their columns. If you map it into memory, then you can manipulate, memory instantiation of the hex of the program. But it's not just gonna like rotate like a Rubik's Cube. That's crazy work.
Matt, he was in the code caves digging out the polymorphic, don't you know?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think he does say it's like polymorphic or something like that. I didn't even have time.
Literally, it's just pirate software. It's pirate software on main there.
Yeah,
exactly what he's doing there.
I do notice someone in the comments is mentioning is with Jamie Levy that some of those characters would never be in the hex dump, which is
exactly, yeah. And Granborough. So the rest of this hex dump actually looks like it's an eye test. It looks okay, but Granborough, there are no hex characters.
I saw a G in there. I didn't see anything else. I saw that G in there. I was like, whoa.
Yeah. And so I'm like benefit of the doubt. Maybe that's the ASCII or the printable representation, but then why are the rest of them hexadecimal? I don't know.
So I just want to say this scene is what it kind of reminds me of a capture the flag event. Like this would be something this would be really cool. Like you can have a CTF where you're getting a hex dump and all of a sudden it's like a visual hex dump, and then you can see this kind of stuff in there. That would make that's what it reminds me. This whole entire scene reminds me of a CTF really, or what do you call those augmented reality games? Like this reminds me of that. It reminds me of a hacking competition or something like that. It reminds me of that. Look great.
I actually think that was not totally unreasonable with the characters. We can look back at that last screen for just a moment. The on the right is the hex dump, and you see in the middle that's the actual hexadecimal, and on the right is the ASCII representation.
Is the principal character? Yep.
Yeah. And so like I've looked at some of those like hacking video game save files or whatever. And I just assumed that what they were kind of trying to represent on the left was they're just sort of combining them, right? You get the hex and you got the these are we just sort of put them together. But I think it's kind of what you're saying. It's a way of visually representing, scanning through hexadecimal, looking for patterns.
Now, I do want to point out that while this scene is going on, M is representing MI6 in like a parliament hearing, I guess what would be over in the US like the equivalent of a congressional hearing. And it kind of struck me that if you just take the subject matter, she's basically saying, I'm here to account for why things keep happening at MI6 and why there are dead agents and that kind of stuff. And Parliament's going to, hold her to account. And I just kind of like, it struck me, if you take the context of that conversation out of this is actually a more realistic depiction of cybersecurity. It's just people in front of like Congress or Parliament just being like, yeah, things keep going wrong and we are trying our best to do that. So this is actually, I think, of the happenings in the scene, this is kind of the more realistic of the two. So yeah, M accounting for why, just somebody in front of Congress or Parliament saying, yeah, things are pretty bad, we're working on it. Beautiful representation of cybersecurity in a general sense.
Where's the giant amount of paperwork that they're filing? That is not seen. Yeah,
definitely in the background.
Yeah.
So on the subject of CTFs, Greg, I actually have a good one for you. So let me bring you back. It is 2011. Regrettably, Yeah 3 Times by Chris Brown is at the top of the charts. And I have just graduated high school and I'm sitting on my couch in the summer of my senior year. And I watched a little movie called The Social Network. And that is the movie, probably for all of its problematic elements, that got me sitting here today, right? Because I saw that and I put all the things together and said, I've been doing this kind of computer stuff for a while. I just never had a name for it. This is what I want to do. And so here I am. However, there is a particular scene. I'm going to give you 2 scenes. One that we're going to start off with is a very interesting one. So we've got Eduardo Saverin. He is Mark Zuckerberg's. Look, you know the story of The Social Network. It's the story of Facebook. I don't think I have to explain everything that's going on here. But Eduardo Saverin comes in and he's like, what's going on, Mark? And this is like right before they're about to move out to California because Facebook is starting to pick up some traction, right? So Eduardo hears like a whole bunch of noise. He goes in. He sees a whole bunch of people using alcohol.
What's going on? It's 10 minutes to get root access to a Python web server, expose its SSL encryption, and then intercept all traffic over its secure ports.
Okay.
They're hacking. Yes, all behind a fixed firewall emulator, but here's the beauty.
You know I didn't understand anything you just said, right?
I do know that.
So what's the beauty?
Every 10th line of code written, they have to drink a shot. The hacking's supposed to be stealth, so every time the server detects an intrusion, the candidate responsible has to drink a shot. I also have a program running that has a pop-up window appear simultaneously on all 5 computers. The last candidate to hit the window has to drink a shot. Plus, every 3 minutes, they all have to drink a shot.
Okay.
Hey, can I ask, what part of the intern's job will they need to be able to do drunk?
You're right. A more relevant test might be seeing if they can keep a chicken alive for a week.
That's a dig at Eduardo from earlier in the movie.
That was me. Here.
He says, like, here's like $18,000. Let's go make a Facebook or something like that. I don't know. Mark goes over, and
Welcome
great.
to Facebook.
Okay. Beautiful. So, what did we just observe? Is the question here, right? And what we just observed is, if I could ever get to the slide, a capture the flag event, right? So this is actually like pretty accurate. This is a competitive hack, a capture the flags competitive hacking events. We see them at conferences of all different sizes. You'll see these down to the local conferences. We see them all the way up to like DEF CON and Black Hat. They have kind of the big ones. You can play as a team or an individual, and then there are prizes for the top contestants. The prize in this case is, of course, working at Facebook as an intern. I would say that this is capture the flags are a really good way to test your skills. They're a really good way to build connections. We run one, by the way, through Cybersecurity Awareness Month. So hint, hint. You should come through for that. It's always a very good time. And I would say that, like, depending on the event, there's either more or less alcohol abuse than what you saw in that particular. Yeah, Greg is shaking his head. There's
Absolutely
either more or less alcohol abuse than what you saw in that one. But yeah, so this is a capture the flag event, and we could break it down here. So we have the script output of this, right? So I'm just gonna call out some of the different things that I see here. Is this, because this is the question that I was asking, like, okay, Mark holds this CTF to see who's going to be the interns at Facebook. Is this like realistic, right? It's kind of like yes and no. Let's break it down. He says they have to root. They have 10 minutes. That's a little fast, but I'm not going to, whatever. He can keep it as competitive as possible. 10 minutes to root a Python web server. Okay. Totally realistic. He probably built something in Flask. It's intentionally vulnerable. And he is going to, I don't know if my video just cut out or not. Interesting.
It did a little bit, but
we'll keep on rolling.
Keep rolling.
So rooting a Python web server, totally realistic. He probably built something in Flask that's intentionally vulnerable. It's got SQL injection or like RCE, and then you have some privesc, GTFO bin, boom. Root a web server. Nothing crazy about that, right? Expose its SSL encryption, kind of. So TLS uses asymmetric cryptography for the initial handshake. So if you don't know how TLS works, initial client hello is asymmetric, and then everything after the client handshake is symmetric, right? So the public key, the public cert of the website is already available, right? So I don't think that's what he means. I think he means that they need to recover the private key off of the server, right? The PEM file. So when you install a web server, you're going to install it with a certificate, and that's going to reside on disk somewhere. If you've rooted a Linux web server, Python web server, but gotten to the operating system, you could totally get that, right? But even in that case, unless Mark intentionally engineered this to be vulnerable, PFS is going to prevent you from decrypting any traffic, even if you have the private key, right? And so I would say it's going to be very rare for your average web server these days to not be implementing PFS, right? So maybe
could you make like I don't know what expose its SSL encryption would necessarily be this, but if you had rooted the server, you could get the traffic maybe like after / before it was sent or received on the server side. So maybe like bypass its SSL encryption would be a better way to
like downgrade. Possibly. You could downgrade back in the day too.
Yeah, that's what I'm I think he's setting them up for like an old school adversary in the middle. So not like the like evil Jinx adversary in the middle, but like an old school like
SSL
like
strip
SSL
back in the day.
strip or a proxy between. So like this is theoretically possible. He also calls out it's behind a Pix firewall. I'm like, great. Sounds good. I don't know why that's yeah, whatever. And then if a server detects an intrusion, they take a shot. That I take that to mean that he implemented some kind of WAF in this, and if they're trying to SQL injection or the RCE, if it detects it via some kind of rule, it's gonna kick them out. I guess they're not super common in CTFs. I'm also like, what rule system existed in the early 2000s? I don't know if we had Suricata at that point, or like I don't remember, or Snort maybe.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Snort. I was gonna say Snort was definitely the big thing back then.
Yeah, so I'm like, this is like relatively realistic with a couple of asterisks, and they've kind of oversimplified it a little bit, but like it's not, if we look back at the script and kind of look at it line by line, I mean, it's more, again, it's impressionist hacking, right? It's like an impressionist piece of artwork. It's going to issue some of the actual details. This does remind me of an actual thing that exists called King of the Hill, which is competitive hacking against other hackers. You can go to Try Hack Me and do this. And it's a really good time. I made some really great friends. I had one of my friends is Canadian, and we played King of the Hill against each other. And in King of the Hill, you root the machine, and then you have to lock everybody else out. And so what I did was I rooted the machine, and then I locked every port out except for one where you could connect to. And then my Canadian friend had to answer trivia questions about Canadian history to get a shell back on the machine. You just have fun with it. Like you can do lots of little crazy hijinks like that. So that reminds me of like King of the Hill more than anything, and like the subject, the technical specificity of the CTF that they were doing, like could be maybe not, but yeah, King of the Hill actually definitely exists. I think Try Hack Me is still running it. So, and I'm kind of over here. Oh yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, back in the day where I worked early in the cybersecurity industry, we actually had this for our interns at least two places I worked at, where we had 6 or 7 interns that we all would be interns, and we actually pit them in things like this and see who is the best at what they did, or who did the most interesting result work during this time, and that's how we hired them. So this is absolutely not out of the realm of what would implausibility at all.
Yeah. And so that my question for this scene was like, why would your web dev interns kind of need to showcase their hacking skills? But honestly, like the more I kind of thought about it, the more it really made sense. If you're good at hacking Python web servers, that means if you could expose SSL encryption, whatever that means that you probably understand from source to sink how to actually like enumerate and exploit an intentionally vulnerable system. If they were pen testers or red teamers, that would be a better fit. But like, I mean, John, you're a developer, like understanding from the attack perspective and the technical implementation of a lot of these different technologies that power the web, it's not super far-fetched to be like your hacking skills will roughly translate into your development skills.
I don't think that's true, actually. No.
Really?
Okay. No. I mean, it's valuable to have that kind of stuff if you're working related things like understanding HTTP request cycles and how does TCP work and all that kind of stuff. And certainly you want to have a familiarity with common vulnerabilities like SQL injection so that you can defend against them, use the appropriate techniques to not have those vulnerabilities. But I would not personally, having worked both in a lot of very security adjacent roles and networking adjacent roles as a software engineer, I wouldn't say that there's necessarily a correlation between skills on one side or the other. They're just
that's fair.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I do think though that the technology industry and Facebook in particular, especially 20 years ago in particular, it's not exactly known for its excellent hiring practices. So I would
fair. Burn.
Well done. Well done.
So I wanted to end. I know we're over, by the way. If you have meetings to go to, if you want to drop off, thank you for hanging out with us. I know we're a couple minutes over, but we just have a few slides to finish up here. So we might, if my co-hosts are okay with this, we might just push another maybe 5 or 10 minutes. But I wanted to end with, and there's a lot of caveats to this one and a lot of things that you got to clear up. But I want to point out that within the social network, the scene that got me to the point where I was like, I think I want to do this for a living, or this, I identify with this. That wasn't the CTF scene that you just saw. It's actually earlier in the movie. And I've come to understand it as, unironically, with a lot of caveats and a lot of like, let me, qualify these statements, one of the best depictions of hacking in any movie that I've ever seen, right? And I want to, we can't show the clip. It's very spicy. If you have seen, I'm just going to, without going into all the details, Mark is scraping web servers from the Harvard campus to build an application. That's all I'm going to leave it as, because the real reason he's doing this is just one of the many reasons why I wish Facebook never actually existed. But yeah, it's also like 8 minutes long, so we're not going to show the whole clip. But Mark, you know the one. If you've seen the movie, it's the one where Mark has just been broken up with, and he's all angry and super mad about it. And he goes up to his dorm room, and while everybody else is kind of watching, he starts to build his first application that would eventually, not that one doesn't become Facebook, but like would give him the inspiration for Facebook, right? So I've pulled excerpts from the script, and we can go through them pretty quickly. So what really ends up happening is that Mark is going into each of these different servers on the Harvard. They're called the Facebooks, right? The individual Harvard Facebooks, and every time that he's trying to get pictures of students, right, and every time that he tries to get more of these pictures, he comes across different like blockers and challenges and things that you have to figure out and workarounds. And then he even hits points where he's like, oh, I can't even do anything about this. I'm going to come back to this later, right? So first up is Kirkland. They index everything and allow they keep everything open and allow indexes in their Apache configuration, so little wget magic. So he's just using like scripting and wget, a very old tool for just downloading, pictures from the website.
Spidering the web.
Exactly. He's crawling the web, basically. But the thing that makes this hacking to me is that he has this back and forth dialogue, this like dance of like, what is the technological setup of the thing that I'm trying to go after? What are the blockers and how do I get around them, right? And he even says like, there's some that I'll come back later. Quincy has no online Facebook. I can't do anything about that. I'm just going to move on. Lowell has some security. They require a username and password. I'm going to go ahead and guess they don't have access to the main FAS. Go watch the full scene, because there's even other things, just for the sake of brevity, that I didn't include in here. But there's one particular Facebook that is like super intense. And he's like, I have to do an open search, but that only returns 20 results. So I'm going to script that out. But then if you do like another open search on top of that, there are no results returned. In any case, he's dancing with all of these, like, what are the technical requirements and implementations and how can I work around them, right? And so this is actually like a really good representation of the hacking methodology. He's not rooting a web server. He's not getting somebody to run malware, but he is implementing, basically, if you go to OSCP or CRTO or any of the big like hacking certification courses, or learn this stuff from the dark corners of the Discords that you hang out in, you're going to learn basically how to implement what Mark is doing here for the sake of actual hacking, right? And at the end of the day, the hacking mindset really is not what does this do. Mark is constantly asking, what can I make this do? And so that is where I'm saying that this is like one of the best representations of hacking in movie. Leaving aside why he's doing this, because I find that to be like cringe as hell. And I'm not glazing Mark Zuckerberg. I do not care for the guy. But if we just take the activities in this scene alone and the dramatic representation of it, it is a pretty good example of like when I was back doing OSCP or through my red teaming days or any kind of pen testing methodology. It's just, what can I make this thing do? What are the things I need to work around? How does the technology work? And using all of that in concert and creating something out of that. He even at one point like finds authentication. And I think in the scene in the movie, you can tell that he like tries his own credentials and it doesn't work. And then he asks his roommate for their credentials and they do work. And so that's actually like there is a very clear example of just trying credentials, cred spraying, right? Like, so in any case, never forget to break out Emacs and modify that Perl script, of course. But there is one part of this scene that I think is like the single most realistic depiction of hacking ever, right? It's right here. Okay, do you see it? Greg, do you see it? John, do you see it? All right, I'm gonna point it out to you. Okay, so in this scene, Mark and his friends are spending their college nights doing this instead of doing this. Yes. And in my experience, that has been accurate to every time that I find myself late at night on a Friday and I think maybe I could be spending time with my friends right now, but I just have, oh, let me just try this and try to get root on this way. That's been accurate to me as well. So,
Yep.
So dumb little jokes and punchlines aside, we here at Huntress, we love hacking. We love movies. We love hacking movies and movies about hacking and TV shows. It's all part of our culture. I for all of the ridiculous things that we've seen today, the bones representation and down to some of the maybe the more accurate stuff, this is all just a celebration of like what it's like to be in this culture, and how that is depicted in movies. We saw some really good stuff. We saw some stuff, but it's all fun. It's all a good time. Before we move on to what's coming next here, gents, do we have any final call outs or things to say or anything from the chat that I might have missed?
I don't think so.
I think, like I said, you did it. I think there was some really cool ideas, especially with I haven't seen The Social Network. You just convinced me to go watch it. I kind of put it up there right there with Snowden's fake documentary. Anyways, but I'll definitely take it out. Like, to me, I think some of the non-hacking movies are more accurate. Like, always to me, the movie Pi always stands out. And Pi is, if you've ever done vulnerability research, Pi is one of the most accurate depictions of burnout, and just trying to find a bug and trying to work through that. So when you're talking about that and how he's hacking and going through that, made me think about Pi and how if you're a vulnerability researcher, you're just going through and you're just burnt out and you're just trying to find one bug or one thing, and just the whole mental roller coaster that it is. It's another one of those movies that's not quite about hacking, but it's right up there.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, as soon as you get that proof of concept for that exploit, though, there is no drug stronger on earth than a working proof of concept for the first time. I can promise you that much.
That's similar as a software engineer. It's like when you push the button and the thing happens.
And it does. It works. Classic.
I think I did come up with one thing that I took away from kind of this and sort of looking back over a lifetime of watching these movies that are often very silly, is that as much as I really appreciate it when they are super realistic and they're like accurately representing stuff, I used to get really hung up on like what was on the screen, and I'd be like, that's not what it looks like. And now I'm kind of like, you know what, like, they're trying to show you how it feels. I've got a lot more accepting of like, this is a thing that is super exciting and fun for me, and they're trying to translate that and show an audience that maybe isn't familiar with the details. Just how exciting it can be, right? How it feels to do this stuff.
Yeah. It's not a joke when I say like Monet in his time was not respected for impressionist artwork, right? Like people were like, what the hell are we looking at? Like, this isn't still life. This isn't photorealistic. And then time has given us the benefit of looking back on those pieces of art and realizing just how absolutely amazing impressionist artwork is. And that's kind of what I feel like a lot of this is it's impressionist hacking, right? It is not meant to capture the still life of hacking. It's not meant to be photorealistic. And I think there's something that we can appreciate about that. So I absolutely identify with that, and I certainly appreciate your take on that. So where in the world is Huntress? If you want to come find us coming up, I mean, we got Black Hat for sure. We're going to be there. I will not personally, but Huntress, of course, will be there. Exchange Security in Texas. We got Nerd.io in Minneapolis as well. Going to have a Boston event as well. That's pretty cool. We also have the Road Show coming up. So a lot of stuff in the UK coming up as well. And Charlotte, North Carolina. And you can register today at huntress.com/events. Upcoming Tradecraft Tuesday, it is on August 12th, and it is a journey to the center of the dark web. I think that's going to be a really fun time, so please, you're already registered. You'll get the email for that if you're in this audience as well. And yeah, if you have any topics that you'd like to hear about, just like let us know, and yeah, should be a pretty good time. And then I think the last thing that I have to plug here, this episode was sponsored by Huntress, if that wasn't extremely obvious. Product Lab is coming up, and that's where our founders Kyle and Chris talk about building a company in public, because that's the spirit of Huntress, is that we build in public, and you can watch the founders do that in real time. So scan the QR code. In any case, I think we're well past the hour, so I don't know if we want to hang around for questions. I think maybe it's the night is at its best, gents. Let's call it here. I appreciate my co-hosts coming through and spending some time and having some laughs and stuff. My name's Matt. Greg, John, thank you. Thanks to everybody who came through. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. Happy hacking. Keep watching those videos and movies and all the things that